Okay, here we are. Alt.nerd.obsessive. Worst episode ever.
Hey everybody, welcome to Worst Episode Ever, a podcast for people who love The Simpsons by people who love The Simpsons about how much we hate The Simpsons. We're here trying to find which is the worst episode ever. It's been so long since I've recorded that, I almost forgot all of it. But my name is Dan.
My name is Jack, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think it was Jack. You sure it wasn't?
It's Jacques.
Jacques, yeah.
They changed
Jacques.
it, but we fought back. We did a little Red Dawn. Me,
It was tough.
Liam Hemsworth, Ghost of Patrick Swayze. We all got together while you were gone, and
and Demi Moore cried when the ghost of Patrick Swayze had to leave.
wait, actually, no, wait. We're assuming that the French Canadian happened after you came back. I believe in the shows in the Wii mythology. We're pulling kind of like a Wii Genesis with a ISYS right now, where at some point one of us went back in time. We were speaking in fourth person. We went back in time. We muddled the timeline, so we were French Canadian. Now we're American again.
I will cut all this. But yeah, I'm back. I made it back into the country. I was in Greece, and
I heard
financially collapsed while I was there.
You could have just spent you couldn't have tipped the bellboy an extra $5, saved the economy.
I single-handedly destroyed your economy. So
And then
if you're
you
a Greek
came
listener,
back, and today, when we're recording this episode, the stock market stopped for the first time in
Also,
in
completely my
years.
fault.
Basically, you're human garbage. You touch everything.
I was touring the stock market, and I had a big soda, and I tripped, and it fell all over the computer. And I was like, uh-oh, he did it. And then that was what happened there. But that's old news, because it's a week ahead now.
Now we're recording this in the future.
Yes. Now we're in August.
By the way, we totally called Joey Chestnut lost the...
We did, yes.
So take that,
good for that.
Chestnut.
Suck it.
You know what happens when you cross us. He knows what
Get
he
your
did.
chestnuts cut.
That too. He also lost the hot dog.
Oh,
contest.
that also, yes. I don't know what it was. Some scrawny guy. What was his name? It was like Scrawny McGee. Or...
It was Scrawny McGee. All the hot dog guys have weird names like that. No, it was Matt Stoney, I think.
Stoney. That's
I think he's come
name.
close a few times. Yeah,
All right.
it's a good enough name.
Good enough, and that's all we need on this podcast. It's good enough.
That was the original title for our lives. Really.
We title our lives, and then we call it Good Enough. Let's start over. Hey, everybody, welcome to Worst Intro Ever. So we are going to be watching Midnight Towboy. It's an episode from season 19. Jack, have you seen this one?
I have seen this. I remember watching it when it aired. I remember thinking it was terrible.
Oh, so great. I'm so happy we're watching it.
I remember it's one of the few episodes I actually remember watching and saying, oh, man, this isn't good. But I mean, it was after I knew the show wasn't good. But I was still shocked at how it wasn't a season premiere, but I remember it was very early. And I guess maybe I was hoping for that comeback season.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
This was the episode where I was like,
Fingers
season
crossed.
19's not it.
Yeah. Well, this aired October of 2007, season 19, and this episode was suggested to us by Max Blaska, who is a frequent listener and commenter and a cat submitter.
And he's a cat
submitter, I believe.
If you don't know what that means, listen at the end of the show.
That's right. Listen all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Hey, big news happened, actually, like yesterday or whatever when we're recording this, but weeks ago now, where Harry Shearer is no longer leaving the show.
Yeah, we
just want to mention it.
We knew that was
something
you call contract negotiations.
That's right.
I feel bad for the old Asian immigrant on YouTube.
That's right. Poor guy. All right. So yeah, I don't know anything about this episode, Midnight Towboy, but we are going to take a break and watch it. If you haven't watched it, you can do that on simpsonsworld.com, or you could probably buy it on Amazon, iTunes, all the usual suspects. And speaking of Amazon, if you are a fan of the show and you want to support what we're doing here, go to our website, which is weepodcast.com, click on our Amazon banners, and then just shop on Amazon like you normally would. We get a small cut, and that helps keep the podcast free, keeps us in Popeyes and... bus stops.
Assuming there's still money by the time this airs. The economy
true.
hasn't collapsed between Greece and your soda.
And my soda at the stock exchange. Okay, let's take a break and watch Midnight Towboy.
Homer, where have you been?
Marge, when you're married to a Midnight Towboy, you might not see him for days on end.
I don't want to live like that.
Hey, when you married a man who would years later, without warning, become a tow truck driver, you knew what the deal would eventually be.
Well, no one's disputing that.
So that was Midnight Towboy.
It sure was, Jack.
Wait, so Midnight Towboy, Towboy, tow for tow truck.
Yep.
So that's obviously a parody of Cowboy, Midnight Cowboy, the John
Midnight
Voight
Cowboy,
movie.
yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I don't know. Does that quite work as a pun?
I mean, I guess. I don't know.
It's not Towboy.
Well, I've actually never seen Midnight Cowboy. This episode has nothing to do with the actual movie, right?
Not really.
Yeah, but it's not like a Western. It's
But I'm more
John Voight
focused
wears
on
a
how
cowboy
stupid
hat.
the pun is. It's just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's odd.
It looks similar, yeah, but even if you read it in your head silently, you're not reading it, Towboy. I don't know.
Midnight Towboy.
So clearly, I love the episode.
It feels like there's another pun you could have come up with for toe.
So,
Yeah.
so let's talk about the plot of this episode real quick.
Let's do it.
Homer buys a plow. Wait, I'm sorry. You see what I did there?
I did.
No, he buys
good.
a tow truck. It's a different episode from Mr. Plow in that it's a different kind of truck.
Yes, it is 15 years after Mr. Plow.
Oh dear. I would have loved this episode a lot more if he had a Mr. Toe jacket. Yeah. And he said, even Plow.
Actually-
that should have been Midnight Plowboy.
Right, and then Mr. Toe. Mr. Toe sounds like a creepy monster who comes in and takes kids' toes.
You better clip your nails, kids, or Mr.
Toes coming to get you. He's apparently Macho Man Randy Savage. Oh, Mr. Toes coming to get you, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Snap into a toe. All right, let's not go into nonsense
No.
immediately.
Snap into a toe will not be a catchphrase. We can promise you that,
Well-
folks at home.
I don't know if we can promise it.
Fucking snap into a toe!
We're putting that on a t-shirt. That's the first wee t-shirt.
Snap into a toe.
Snap into a toe!
So it starts with Maggie can't sleep at night, so Homer has to go drive. He has to go out in the middle of the night, look for some milk. He can't find any. None of the stores are open. There's no milk for whatever reasons. He ends up in another town outside of Springfield where he meets Louie, played by Dillon.
Dillon, yep.
Louie is a tow truck driver who's towing Homer's car. He tells Homer how it's great to be your own boss and tow trucks for a living. Homer's in. It's one of the Homer gets a new job episodes. It's like every other episode, episode.
Now he's a tow truck driver.
Now he's a tow truck driver. This episode could have also been called Homer the Tow Truck Driver in better days. So he gets a tow truck. He starts plowing everybody's cars. He becomes a little bit mad with Power or Tower, I guess, if we're doing the puns that don't rhyme or reason.
Tower, Tower.
Yeah, so he becomes mad with Tower. So the townspeople trick him into going into Louie's territory. Louie kidnaps him and puts him in a dungeon in his basement until Maggie, who there's a subplot with Marge where Maggie's become self-dependent. Independent, I guess, would be the... Not self-dependent.
She's dependent on herself.
Yeah. So she becomes independent, and Maggie ends up breaking out when she sees how sad Marge is and how worried Marge is. And Maggie saves Homer, and then in the end, Maggie realizes that she wants to be dependent on her mom for a little bit longer, and it wraps up into a neat little package.
Yes, or a tow cage.
Step into a toe! I gotta start. They don't like when I yell into the mic.
All right, maybe they'll like this. Snap into a toe.
That's how
Very nice and calm.
Or Hugh Stretch should be the snap into a toe guy.
Yes, strap into a toe. Strap into a toe.
Ooh, that's We After Dark. That's the.
I'll strap a toe into you. This is getting weird.
Yeah, this is getting cut, is what it's getting.
Let's just start at the very beginning.
All right.
Marge putting Maggie to bed.
sorry.
Okay, we're going even farther. Cut this.
The couch gag was
Yes.
stop motion Legos, which
Yes.
was a precursor to, I want to say, 7-8 years later when they did the Lego episode.
Yeah.
Which we haven't seen because we're saving it for this podcast, but we've heard it's decent.
I've heard it's a pretty good one, but
So that's interesting that they did a couch gag before. I mean, it's not.
Well, it's Legos or Blockos.
White
as they
Stripes
used to
did
call
it
them.
5 years before that, so
That's
6
true.
years before that. So
Good video.
yeah, it's nothing new, but it was nice. It was a decent couch gag, and it was quick, which we love. We got the point. They didn't have to do a whole
no-
thing about it.
Right, an extended thing of like the Legos fall and
Yeah.
then
We see the Legos built in the factory, and then they,
Yeah, right,
and
and they
they're
get shipped
shipped
to
by a
Springfield.
truck with a not funny sign on the side of the
they're
truck
shipped by a
that says
cat
like
that's an Amazon drone.
So the episode itself starts with Marge putting Maggie to bed, and she says, "Good night, Teddy Bear. Good night, Justin Timberwolf," which
I liked.
yeah, it's fine. It could have
laughed.
been a dated joke, but Timberlake has proven himself to be
Justin Timberlake transcends time.
yeah, he's more than
Just
a
like
fad.
just like his film In Time.
and he sings in fourth person, which is why he's so popular. It's
I'm gonna rock your body in the future.
he's bringing sexy forward.
Whoa. That was my mind being blown.
She also says goodbye to the Krusty doll.
Yes.
Which it's great that they can still do funny Krusty dolls after they've
Yeah.
been doing that joke since season 1, season 2.
Yeah, I think it was nighttime Krusty, and they pulled the string, and it says, "Don't let the bed bugs bite. Buy my Krusty anti-bed bug spray. May contain poison."
Yeah, there's lots of like
Very funny.
The
All
fact that
very
he's
good.
pushing his product.
Yeah.
In the actual voice of the doll, and then the may contain poison, the warning
Yeah.
on top of that. It was I liked, and the Krusty delivery was great.
Yeah, all of it was good.
Yeah.
The whole opening, even that whole storyline, to be honest with you, I liked it
Yeah,
a lot.
I liked the
thought it was
Marge.
very sweet, very...
I didn't like how it resolved. We'll get into that. I thought it kind of just fizzled away. But the idea of Marge, Maggie's her youngest daughter, and for her baby to no longer need her. I mean,
Right.
it's a little ridiculous that she's an infant, but
Well,
it's
yeah,
whatever.
I mean-
but that's a great story for Marge.
Yeah, definitely.
It was fun.
One of the kids is pulling away from Marge.
And
I've
I know
done that
it-
before,
yeah.
but not really with Maggie, so yeah, I liked it.
And we're biased towards Marge, obviously, but
We love her.
I think most of her Marge-centric jokes in this episode, and we'll go through them as we come to them. I think most of them actually hit. So
Yeah, I agree.
that was nice.
Marge says, "Oh, I'll have to give you another bottle," so you go to sleep, and that's when she drops a bottle of milk. And I think we both really liked Homer.
Sorry, before that,
Yeah.
there was something I really liked where to personify how clingy Maggie was, she literally was clinging to Marge.
Yeah.
And there was a great little animation that they did where Marge goes, "All right, good night," and starts to walk away, and you hear the crib being dragged along the floor.
Yeah.
And it's Maggie holding onto her through the bars, and as Maggie walks and that was just like a nice visual way to show the literal act of Maggie being clinging.
Yeah.
Anytime the show uses visual language as shorthand is way better than what we've seen a lot on the show when they just literally spell it out. Like last week, Milhouse literally spelled out a joke. So it's nice when they do the opposite of spelling it out.
Right.
Mathing it out. I don't know.
They math it out. I like that.
The spilled milk was a great joke. So yeah, they drop the milk. Homer immediately drops to his knees.
He's like, "No, the milk."
Yeah, and I don't think they ever
I liked
actually
it.
say, Homer,
Quit
why are
crying
you-"
over spilled milk.
Exactly.
Yeah, which I would expect him to do now.
Yeah, I mean, they really went with the joke. So then they cut to it from a close up of like him right in front of the camera, like that dramatic shot where you fall to your knees, and it was perfect.
Yeah.
And then they cut to a wide shot, like above the kitchen, where now you have Bart and Lisa in the frame, and that kind of made it even more epic. Where it's like it's like a shot in a TV show or in a movie when somebody is murdered and they're over the dead body.
Right,
and
right,
like,
yep.
you do that bird's eye view. So like that even made it more dramatic and more funny, but. It could have been funny if they just left it there. My point is they were like playing with it, getting too much, but it was executed perfectly.
Yeah.
And in the fact that nobody said, "Quit crying over spilled milk."
Get up from that spilled milk and stop crying.
I mean, I think Homer literally does say it's on the floor, but I think I liked it the way. It was just
it worked.
The
There was
milk,
nothing I didn't
it's
like.
on the floor, or something like that. I mean,
And
worked.
it wasn't
It's all
like,
good.
"I have to cry because the milk was spilled."
Where's the milk fountain?
Batman can be anybody. He can spill the milk whenever he wants. So then Homer has to go out and buy milk. And like you said when you were doing the recap, for no real reason, like, there's no milk anywhere. I guess Apu said he told teenagers that you could make jet fuel out of milk, Lotto shavings, and Mentos.
I like the Lotto shavings just because that's
I
a
like
very
that too.
specific thing that you don't think of, and of course a convenience store would have a lot of it.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that, Apu had made up this thing to sell milk to dumb teenagers, but then they cut to Jimbo actually doing it with actual, like, jet fuel.
Yeah,
And it lingers on
they
him
linger
for
on
way
it
too long.
and they don't really add anything to the joke besides it just kind of not working very well. If you're gonna maybe if it was a quick cutaway, fine, but if you're gonna linger, you got to add something to it. Or,
It would have been better if, like, Homer's like, oh, does that work? And Apu says, oh, I don't know. And then Jimbo, like, just in the background moves past, like, on a jetpack.
Yeah, that would be funny.
That could have been better.
I was thinking it would have been funny if it was, like, violent, or, like, where it works very suddenly and fast, and he, like, slams into a wall, you know, kind of slapsticky.
That's what I
something
expected
like that.
to happen, actually. And no, not so much.
Something. If you're gonna linger on a joke, two things should happen. Either the joke's gonna escalate, there's gonna be an extra beat.
The beat, extra beat.
Actually, Chris Kiernan, listener, sent us a Facebook message the other day. He actually came up with a great idea for an extra beat alarm. Actually, we've had a few listener suggestions. I can't remember which ones are which. If they were all, they might have all been the same person. I don't remember. But we've had a few.
It was Leonardo DiCaprio who was one in everything.
He's everybody.
That's
right. He's the alpha and the omega. No, so we had a few good suggestions for what the extra beat alarm should be. One was it should be a sound clip from the classic era of the show where Lisa just goes, "We got beats," and then the other was just a rim shot with like an extra cymbal, like one cymbal too many. Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
So
I like that.
I think it beats our yelling into the mic beat over and over.
I like yelling into the mic.
We know.
So step into a toe.
Step into a toe. Anyway, if you're gonna linger on a joke, either have the extra beat, have something to add to it, or the lingering is the joke, like the classic Sideshow Bob break joke.
Right.
This was nothing. So the first place Homer goes is Moe's.
Right.
Or maybe not the first place. I guess
it was after the Quickie Mart. Yeah. But yeah, Homer goes to Moe's, and he asks Moe if they have any milk, and Moe is like, I have this. I can't tell if it's milk or paint. And this was another classic extra beat kind of joke where Homer takes the glass and he drinks it, and he drinks too much of it, and he says, yep, it's paint. And then he goes, wait a minute, let me double check, and he drinks more of it.
Yeah.
That didn't need to be there, but then it goes even further with extra beats.
Yeah, Moe goes, all right, I'm gonna have to charge you for the paint. Let me look in the blue book for how much the paint is. We gotta see what color it is.
There's just a scene of like looking at swatches and being like, oh, is it eggshell? Is it whatever?
I like that. I like the visual of him putting the swatches up to Homer's tongue.
I liked that.
It took too many beats before and too many beats after to get to that place.
Right, it was the looking it up in the book after, and Homer like drinking the milk paint a second time.
Yeah. The second time didn't bother me too much. It was in that vein of driving the joke home. Yeah. But it was a little different in that the joke is that Homer wasn't quite sure. I mean, I guess it's falling into stupid Homer realm. But at least it was an extra beat, but it was a separate beat, if that makes sense. It still wasn't a good beat. It wasn't worth having that extra beat, but at least it was a little different. It wasn't just the same beat twice. If we're going with the rim shot with the extra cymbal, at least it was like a hi-hat instead of a...
Okay.
That's the only cymbal I know.
So a separate but extra beat.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go.
The Seb?
The Seb. Good old Seb.
Oh, and I like that. I do also like that after all the paint swatches, the eggshell, the pearl, all this. It ended up being white.
Right.
So it's like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah, that was whatever.
So now he has to leave Springfield to look for milk. And there's a couple of great gags here. It's the classic What's Outside Springfield. You have Ogdenville, Brockway, right?
Yep, North
Haverbrook, Shelbyville, obviously.
Yep.
I forget what the Shelbyville sign was.
I don't remember. I know that one of them, I think, was Ogdenville.
Yeah.
So Homer's driving past a bunch of billboards for towns, and Ogdenville said milk free since 73.
Yeah, that was great.
And then the best one, probably the best joke of the whole episode, was Homer is driving past a billboard that's obscured by a tree, and it says milk along the side, and then he goes, and then as he gets closer, you realize it was actually an acronym for Mr. T is the new Lion King.
with a picture of
Mr. T
in a big lion costume.
Yep. That was great. If I didn't make it the photo of this episode on the website, I meant to, and I forgot about it. But it was
perfect. I mean, we've seen this joke. The Simpsons have done this joke before in the classic era.
Yeah.
They usually do great jobs with it. There's the X-Files one with the diet, but then it's actually diet. Mm-hmm. So they do great jokes like this, and sometimes we don't like when they do the same joke twice, but we don't mind when they do it in a better way.
Well, billboard
it's
humor.
the what up with that.
Yeah, right. Billboard humor is something that the Simpsons definitely used to do very well, and this I think was another.
So you have the setup. Obviously, he's hoping there's milk, and then the payoff is that there's no milk. It was something else.
It's something much better. It's Mr. T in a lion costume.
Yeah, and obviously we're biased towards was like Mr. T and anything 80s, 90s. And
Yeah.
Mr. T actually was the runner-up for the Mr. Toe mascot position. But
I pity the fool. I'm going to get your toe.
But no, I mean, literally, they could have come up with, and they probably did in the writers' room, hopefully, if they were putting effort into it, they could have come up with 100 different milk acronyms.
Right.
And they probably had like 5 or 10 really good ones.
Yeah.
This was, I think it's safe to say this was the best, in all of the English language, this was the best possible.
In all of the parallel universes, this is the best. We're truly in the best one because we had Mr. T as the Lion King. There's a scene where it cuts back to the Marge storyline where Marge is on the computer trying to look up information on what to do if your baby won't go to sleep and the baby's cranky. And she kind of has no idea what she's doing with the computer, and Bart and Lisa are yelling different things at her. And oh no, you bought a freezer.
The classic older generation doesn't understand computers. They actually did a whole episode about it that we've already covered with the Warcraft episode where the whole first act was Marge didn't know how to use the internet.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Anyway.
I think that was with someone else.
That's my other Simpsons podcast I haven't told you about yet.
You bastard! I knew you've been two-timing me.
I'm actually 9-timing you. I have 9 separate post-classic Simpsons niche podcasts.
There's the worst episode ever. There's the blurst episode ever.
There's the rest.
There's 8 other ones.
Just a picture of a TV and the pets.
That's it. Anyway, it wasn't the best.
One is Serial. Nobody's actually listened. They just say they listen because it's cool, but Serial is actually me talking about The Simpsons with somebody who's not you or the other 8 guys.
It'd be great if Serial started with like Sarah Koenig's like, whoa, what's happening with Heyman Lee that day? And then it's just like, all right, Jack's here. Let's talk about The Simpsons.
I do the audio version of what the Joker did in Batman '89, where he just pushes the screen, pushes the mayor out of the other screen.
Just whoop, and Jack's back.
I just push Koenig out of the way, and I go, all right, so what episode are we talking about on this one?
And it's just you.
And it was the Warcraft one.
Yep.
And that's that tangent.
With Smilex. Anyway, my point was with the Marge thing, she's using the computer, and it was very, not very original, but I still kind of like that well.
There was a great line where she accidentally buys a freezer, and then they do the scene, and then at the end of the scene they go, you just bought another freezer, and Marge was just fed up with the kids, and
she's like, maybe I meant to,
She goes, maybe I wanted another freezer. That was a great Marge joke, just like that, where she finally loses it, but she's still, she's not like saying, fuck you, asshole, she's just saying, well, maybe I want another freezer. It almost...
Although it would have been funny if she had said, fuck you, asshole, to Bart and
Like the
Lisa.
Terminator, like she was like looking at her list of options of how to respond. Fuck you, asshole.
Possible homosexual.
I'm pretty sure, I don't think anything ever leaves the internet, but there's a great YouTube video. Somebody made like a techno remix of just fuck you, asshole, from the first Terminator movie. Check it out, kids.
That's awesome. Google that.
So we were talking about funny billboards. Then there was a billboard I didn't like. So we meet a new non-Springfield town, new Ogdenville, a new Shelbyville.
Yes, Homer winds up in Guidopolis, also known as Staten Island.
True. Staten Island, like 50 years ago, I guess. So that's what I wanted to say is... that was too on the note. All right, so if you're doing
Guidopolis?
so if you're doing a city that's all Guidos, fine. I mean, the early Lumpkin town, wherever that was, the Fudd Beer, that was a little one note. That's okay. It's just you're doing a town for 2 scenes. You can make it one note.
Yeah.
But the name Guidopolis, and then like they couldn't come up with, even if it didn't need to be a pun. Like Ogdenville isn't anything really. At least I don't think. I mean, I guess it's named after. William Ogden, was he a vice president? I don't.
There's lots of Ogdens. There's too many Ogdens to count.
So maybe you could come up with a pun or something related to like the Guido culture. Maybe not. Maybe just call it another town. Maybe call it New Jersey. I guess that's too Futurama. I don't know. So they go to Mookie Mart instead of Quickie Mart.
They go to Mookie Mart, which as a pun is not the best in the world.
Yeah.
It's not the CM pun. You don't get that. It's a wrestling thing. CM Punk is the best in the world.
We have a very large contingent of wrestling fans listening. I'm sure they
all
appreciated it.
loved it.
I just want to point out that for our non-wrestling fans, my other 8 Simpsons podcasts, post-classic Simpsons podcasts, we never talk about wrestling at all. This is the most wrestling-centric of my 9 Simpsons podcasts.
For all of our wrestling listeners, listen to my 10 other worst WWE ever podcast.
I do have an MMA heavy Simpsons podcast.
Well, you'll also be talking about CM Punk on that because now he's an MMA fighter.
Well, no, I was not talking about mixed martial arts. I was talking about. Give me a minute here.
Okay, I was really waiting to see where you're going.
I was talking about the Mad Monkey Association. The union of crazy monkeys. Like they were tested on, and they don't. And now they.
You know what? It works. Mad Monkey Association.
All right, I got a better one.
All right.
Yeah. No,
Take two.
I was not talking about the mixed martial arts.
Oh, of course not.
I was talking about the Mighty Max All Stars.
Mighty Max.
Exactly.
Mighty
Yeah,
Max.
it's a group of us who go to comic book stores. We go in the back. They have a special room for us, and we play competitive Mighty Max.
Wow.
Which people didn't know was a thing, but you bring your own little Mighty Max
Yes,
set.
the boy version of Polly Pocket.
Yeah, exactly. I was obsessed with Mighty Max as a kid. I had all the play sets, and I watched every episode, and I cried in the season finale. Series
Wow.
finale, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It was a really trippy series finale.
I-
Everybody dies, and then he wakes up in a time loop, and it starts at the beginning of the first episode again.
That's fucked up.
For like 8-year-old boys.
Yeah. So Mighty Max is doomed to repeat these X amount of episodes.
It's pretty much Daybreak with Tiger Diggs.
You want to try another MMA?
That's good.
All right.
Yeah, so the Mookie Mart, it was okay. It wasn't that much funny. So hated this line. The guy goes, "I got your milk right over here," and then he points and right below.
Right, he
is
actually
the
had the
actual
milk.
which
Yeah.
that's been done before. We got it right over here, and they were being literal. Ed O'Neill did a whole sketch about that in the early '90s SNL when he hosted. He's like, "Yeah, I got your salami right here." He ran at like an Italian deli.
That
and he's
one,
like,
I don't
here's
remember
the
that.
salami. So anyway,
More of our 90s SNL theater.
So it was just a boring joke that we've seen a million times. It's like, all right, whatever. But then Homer goes, "I thought you were pointing to your crotch." And it's just like, that's spelling out the joke. That's literally what we were saying we like when they don't do that. Yeah.
I mean, the whole Guidopolis thing, all of it was just lazy.
It's also,
I mean,
I'm not going to, you don't have to have a reason for something. But it is weird that they chose this as the setting since, I guess Louie is kind of got some mob connections or is kind of an outlaw because at the end he has a gun and he keeps
has a
people hostage.
basement full of hostages.
But other than that, I didn't really see what the Guido culture had anything to do with Louie or the tow truck.
That's a great point. And like Matt Dillon, of all people, so Matt Dillon is the voice actor or the special guest star who voices Louie, the tow truck driver. I don't think of him as an especially like Italian stereotype type
he's an
person.
actor.
Well, I know he's an actor, but like if you're bringing in Matt Dillon, why is it also a Guido? Why is he in the Guido town?
Like, why didn't
wouldn't
they
that make more sense if you had like James Gandolfini?
Yeah,
I know
if
he's
you're
dead
doing
now,
stunt
but-
casting, you can get like a Guido type character to play, but I don't mind an actor playing out of type. I mean,
I don't mind him playing out of type.
Dustin Hoffman played the very Jewish professorial Mr. Bergstrom, and he's actually a French Native American. He's French Indian.
That's true. He is. A lot of people don't know that. He tries to keep it under wraps.
He's
but
half,
you've heard it here,
half
folks.
French, half Cherokee.
He's a Frenchie. But no, I'm fine with him playing like an Italian stereotype-ish character. But why? Why is that with this plot? Why?
I don't know.
Why are we bringing that in?
Let's talk about Matt Dillon. There's not much about his characterization now since we're here, and it doesn't really come up in any way in the future.
He's in the first act. He's in the last act. That's pretty much it.
So besides the fact that he's playing this Guido guy, so I liked a lot of his delivery. He was kind of playing like this understated, low-key, too cool for school guy, which fit the idea that the tow truck driver lives by his own rules.
Right.
And he played a very understated, he's like, yeah, I'm my own boss. And I liked that delivery. It was something you don't see all the time. He was, it wasn't like a strained guest star, or a guest star just blatantly playing themselves or not knowing how to read lines or cue cards or whatever. I like that, but
I don't know if they use cue cards when they're
I
recording
was
this.
physically thinking of Britney Spears. I'm pretty sure like they just had like a big sign right in front of her and just like read this. But but there were a few times where he got emotional, like when he said if you ever if you ever break my territory, I'll rip off your head and I'll vomit.
Right.
Or there might have been a few times when Homer does breach his territory where he yells at him, and it doesn't. It was too monotone. Like I don't mind monotone as a personality when it works, like when it should be monotone. But I don't know when he actually was not showing emotion, but speaking emotion and not showing it. If you're going to do monotone, then you shouldn't even be speaking emotion. You should be totally monotone. Whereas he was like saying things where it's like, it was just kind of one note. It was kind of flat, not one note. It was flat.
Well, it was. I mean, I guess he's doing it. Maybe he was intentionally doing it flat because later in the episode when it escalates and you find out he turns a gun on Homer and keeps him hostage and he's like a nut job.
See, I think it would have been made more sense if he was this like hot under the collar kind of guy, and he was yelling. It's like, okay, now I see why he's pulled a gun on this guy. And
I agree with you. I'm just trying to think.
There's no justification for him locking a bunch of people up in his basement, but we'll get to that.
That's at the end.
I almost wish John Goodman's like biker character from whenever that was, season 11, 12, that was a post-classic.
Yeah, 11, I think.
But that almost would have been a good personality type for this role. But
yeah,
no. So for the most part, I like Matt Dillon. I thought it was a little too flat.
Matt Dillon as an actor is just like, I don't dislike him, but
he's done nothing for me. Yeah, I can't think.
He doesn't do much for me.
I can't think of anything
There's something about Mary.
I've never seen it.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
That's weird.
I know.
It hasn't aged well. I don't think you'd like it if you saw it now.
Yeah. No, I can't think of anything I've really loved him in.
Wild Things.
I loved Kevin Dillon, his older brother, in the Blob remake in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. He was in that.
That's about it.
That's literally, you're the only person who would go to that and not Entourage.
I liked him in the first couple seasons of Entourage.
I don't like Entourage. I mean, we don't have to talk about that.
The first couple seasons are okay. Anyway.
Season 1.
That's on my, I talk more about that in my post-classic Simpsons Entourage podcast.
It's just called, Oh Yeah! And Jeremy Piven.
and Jeremy
A couple of things I want to talk about. I liked when Homer is with Louie, the Matt Dillon character, in the tow truck, and he's explaining like what he does for a living, and that he's his own boss, and he's like, my boss is right here in this truck. I actually like that Homer first looks around to see where this boss is, and then Homer is like, I must be your boss. I thought that was funny. I feel like you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, it dragged, like, the looking around the car is, like, just bored. It's not that I hated the joke. It's not, sometimes I say shouldn't be a joke. It's, structurally is a bad joke. That was fine. I was just bored. I didn't, I did like when he did finally say, I must be your boss. It was a nice little turnaround, but I don't know.
Maybe he didn't need to look around the car if he had just been like, there's only two of us. I must be your boss.
He's, like, looking in the, like, I don't know. He's just,
whatever.
Yeah. I don't want to like claim that that's too stupid for Homer because then it dilutes the other times when
stupider.
But I don't know. I was just bored.
I bet you. Okay, so I'm gonna assume you didn't like this either, but I did like it. Matt Dillon's character says he has all these terms he has for cars. I forget what they were because I didn't write any of them down.
I think one might have been like Hebrew canoe or something.
Yeah,
like
that's what I thought it was too. I wasn't sure if I misheard it.
Yeah.
But anyway, he lists off a few of them, and then Homer goes, "Oh, some of those were pretty funny." Was that too meta for you? Oh, you liked it?
No,
okay.
I like that.
I like that too.
I think it would have been better if I understood, like you said, like they kind of just went by and they didn't.
Yeah.
If there were actually a couple of really funny ones and then a couple more.
That's
it's
true.
Like there was a joke a few weeks ago on an episode we covered where they were doing the cafeteria menu and they were all like really jokey names for food. And they go, who comes up with this stuff? And
the sitcom writers.
Yeah, it's like the sitcom writers work as the cafeteria workers, and it worked because the food menu items were very sitcom-y.
Yeah.
Like the meta joke fit the setup.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, so I really liked that meta joke. Like, oh, some of those were funny. It just didn't quite mesh well with the actual setup of the car names.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, so Homer buys the truck. Yep. It's basically the same exact thing as Mr. Plow, where he wants to be his own business by buying some sort of truck. I can't wait until season 27 when Homer buys a Zamboni. I think that's going to be a great one.
Harry Shearer's going to be glad he came back.
That's right.
Give me that $300,000 to do the Zamboni episode.
He'll sleep on a pile of money surrounded by beautiful ladies. But I did like there was a weird scene where Matt Dillon is kind of saying to him, make sure you always have your tow truck hook facing this way. And Homer's like, why not? And he turns it the other way, and a car full of flamboyantly homosexual men come up, and they're like, hello. Yeah. I guess the joke being like...
The hook looks like...
Like, oh, no. I didn't think that.
Oh, what did you think?
Oh, I thought it was supposed to be like, if you're a man and you get your ear pierced, it's like, oh, you got to make sure you get the right one pierced. Because if you get the left ear pierced, it means you're gay.
Oh, I thought it was because the hook looked like a big penis.
Oh, I don't think that was the joke.
Everything to me looks like penises. We're talking into penises right now.
We literally are talking into penises, though. The microphones were broken, and we had to substitute with penises.
I do this like Looney Tunes thing where I look at you and you kind of dissolve into just a giant 6-foot penis.
No one can see what I just did.
I don't know what it was.
That's not supposed to be a penis.
Yeah, I was going to say, if that was an impression of a penis.
That was my impression of a penis.
Is
that not what penises do?
I've seen better.
I'll bet you have, Pacone. I'll bet you have.
That's my other post-classic Simpsons podcast.
I've seen better penises.
I've seen better penises, parentheses, a Simpsons podcast. Check us out on buy items from
www.I'veSeenBetterPenisesPodcast.com.
Yeah.
Street cattle.
The cars I tow. I got all kinds of names for them. She-adders, Hebrew canoes, spam cans, Swedish speedballs, and of course, stretch lamos.
Some of those were pretty funny.
So that's the end of Act 1, and Act 2 begins, and this is, I made this note in my notes that I took when we were watching the show. I don't know if you're going to agree with me on this one, but I thought this episode, structure-wise, not necessarily with all of the jokes, but there was some essence to this episode that made it feel, if not like a classic episode, then like a season 12 episode.
Because the jokes were tied into the story?
Yeah, definitely that was a big part of it, but also the fact that it was just a straightforward A plot and B plot, and they weren't completely separated because they kind of spun out of each other, and then they come back at the end and link up again.
The last few episodes we've done on this podcast, I think it was
like
this one.
Lucas was, it could have been one of the other 9.
But a lot of the episodes we would talk about the B plot separate from the A plot. We would rather than go throughout the whole episode scene by scene.
Yeah.
Because they were so distinct from one another.
Right.
Can't really do that.
Can't
with
do
this
that
one.
today.
Yeah, which is good.
But yeah, this episode had a good feeling. I don't know that I loved it, but it was.
Yeah, I got the sense that you liked this one. I mean,
this felt closer to season 12 than it did to season 26. I guess.
I'll say, and I hate to prejudge the show, even though at the top of the show we say we hate The Simpsons, and we have kind of a bad reputation from people who actually haven't listened to our show.
We're badasses from Guidopolis.
That we just shit on post-classic episodes, and we don't. We try to give them a fair shake. We go in expecting the worst because we're just going by numbers here most of the time. They're terrible.
Well, we are soliciting episode suggestions, and you guys tend to submit bad ones.
So I guess what I'm saying is I do judge the books by a cover. I'm just willing to change that judgment right away.
Yeah.
So that being said, I did judge this because it was a season 19 episode. I was assuming it was going to be pretty shitty. And I would say that it, even though we've only watched one other season 19 episode, it does feel earlier than a late teens episode.
Right.
I agree with that.
This is the season before it went HD.
Yeah.
So this is the end of that
I agree. It
era.
didn't feel like of that era for whatever that means. But I don't think I liked it nearly as much as you. I didn't hate it. I guess I was just, I don't know. I hated the third act. But,
all right, well, we'll see how the numbers shake out at the end.
Yeah, I was just kind of bored. I don't know.
Yeah. So Act 2 actually begins, and Homer is now a tow truck driver in Springfield. We see him towing some cars away. He tows away the rich Texan's car, which was in a weird, it was a weird little bit, because I didn't get...
He's parked in a handicap.
He's parked in a handicap spot, right, and he pleads with Homer not to tow it, and Homer does tow it, and then he says, well, I guess I have to call a cab, and he turns around and he goes back inside.
Well, he says the reason he's handicapped is because he's afraid of beards and mustaches.
Okay, now it makes sense.
Oh, you didn't see?
I didn't even remember that, because he goes into a Santa school.
Right.
Now
so as somebody who was watching the episode, here's my take on it.
I was watching a bird outside that was doing some very interesting things.
I was watching this and several penises. So he says he's afraid of beards and mustaches, and that's why he's handicapped.
Got it. I mean,
and then he goes into the sand school, but it wasn't fun. It still wasn't funny,
right.
Even knowing literally going into the Santa building. It was just not funny.
Yes.
I think he starts shooting the Santas because he's afraid of them.
Because he's a Texan.
Yeah.
No offense to our Texas listeners.
I guess this would
be dirty Texas listeners. So Homer is towing things around town, and there was one sequence that I actually really, really liked. Because it was very well animated. It's when Bart is hanging off the back of the truck and kind of skateboarding through town.
Yeah, he's having fun.
What did you think of that?
Again, I didn't love it, didn't hate it. I was just bored. I was just watching it and just like having no emotional response. I was just watching it.
It wasn't really a gag until the very end. It was just kind of like Bart having fun and Homer's kind of into it. And then Homer stops short and Bart hits his head on the back of the truck, passes out for a beat.
Yeah, it was really violent, really whoa, that was too intense. But then it pays off.
And then Bart just gets up and starts laughing, and Homer starts laughing too.
Yeah, it was.
I
nice
liked
to
it.
see
I thought
them,
all of it was good.
It was nice to see him bonding. I didn't hate it because it was everybody was acting like themselves. It was very similar to the dynamic they had when Homer was driving the monorail, and
right.
Bart just thinks it's cool. His dad's got a cool job, and he's No, it was fun. I don't know. I can't tell you. Maybe it's just my mood, but I was just watching it, and I thought it needed more penises.
I thought doesn't everything.
I wasn't crazy about that. I wasn't crazy about when he tows Arnie the Pie in the helicopter.
Yeah, Arnie Pie of Arnie in the Sky.
I wasn't crazy about that. He tows it, and then the helicopter lifts up the truck, and then now the helicopter's carrying the truck. But so Homer throws a wrench into the propellers.
Yeah.
Didn't really find any of that funny, but I did like the animation of after the helicopter crashes to the ground, then Homer just starts up the truck again and drags the helicopter. I like it. Had a very classic-y Simpsons feel of like just things being dragged and like very worked in, and like just everything's dented and scraped on the show, and and that worked to that effect.
This whole sequence to me was what the Bart sequence was to you. I was just very whatever.
I was very whatever for 95% of that sequence. I just liked that very tail end. I liked the dragging.
It was just why are we doing this?
No,
it
just
doesn't make
like
sense.
what they were literally in the writers' room going, okay, Homer's a tow truck driver. What are some funny situations in Springfield?
Right, exactly.
Let's do Arnie Pie and Rich Texan. Here's who's not in this episode: Burns. But let's do Arnie Pie and
let's get Arnie Pie and Rich Texan. Let's give them their
whatever.
due. Now I think it is time to talk about your favorite part of the episode, the old hippie woman.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll move on. It was whatever. Marge hires this hippie lady who's very kind of new agey, but also like I'm gonna leave Maggie to actualize herself.
Yeah. Which is it's a good storyline because it's simple and it makes sense. How do you make a baby less dependent on you? You let her cry. I've heard that's a parenting technique, is leaving your baby cry, and I can understand how
ferberizing it's called.
And I could understand how hard that would be. I had the same thing when I had a puppy. I couldn't bear to hear the puppy crying when I was cage training it. And for Marge especially. So that's a good storyline. I love that, as Marge is this devoted mother. She's usually innocent, but she's got this dark side that comes out. So she's like trying to give herself the willpower to let Maggie cry in the other room and not go and attend to her.
Right.
And the hippie is like the hippie woman is like, yeah, good, that's great. And then finally Marge just snaps and just violently knees the woman in the crotch.
In the uterus. I loved it. Yeah. I thought that was great.
It was a violent outburst that would almost feel like a Family Guy joke, except that it was totally rooted in Marge's character.
I totally think, it totally made sense to me.
Great.
I thought it was a great moment.
It's not something you would normally see Marge do, but it's not at all out of character. It fit perfectly.
And then I liked later when Marge is like, I'm sorry for kneeing you. I don't usually do things like that. And the hippie woman's like, oh, I'm so glad your first time was such a success.
Yeah, I know. That was a great, sorry. It was such an empty apology.
Yeah,
no, everything worked. It was gangbusters.
Yeah. So then Homer goes into Moe's with his toe dough that he's looking to blow Moe, which was whatever.
Fine. Yes, you can. All those words rhyme.
I liked that he asks for the fanciest drink that Moe has, and he says, all right, 4 Lobster Politans coming up.
This is a classic Simpsons joke. This is like a great Simpsons gag of like doing something that's ridiculous but kind of makes sense in the world of Springfield.
Right.
Where the fanciest cocktail would be lobster, because lobster's a fancy food.
Yep.
But of course you wouldn't drink lobster. And then not only
it had the little claws on the glass.
So exactly. So not only is the Lobster Politan just the idea of a lobster-based drink. Which actually does exist. Like
no.
Yeah, if you get like a Bloody Mary, sometimes they put lobster in it. It's gross.
Really?
Yeah.
Bloody Marys are gross to begin with. I can't stand them.
I love Bloody Marys. I love lobsterless Bloody Marys.
Hey, Worcestershire sauce is for mistake. It ain't for the mistake that is the Bloody Mary.
I disagree.
I'll see myself out.
I disagree. I make my own Bloody Marys. I do a damn good job. So like not only is the Lobster Politan a great joke and the idea of a lobster-based drink, but it's almost like they thought it out well in advance, because there's so many things that also work with that within this context of this joke. So when he makes a drink, he's doing the mixing. He's got the metal mixers, whatever you call them.
Right, the whole ritual to the making of it.
Yeah, the ritual of making the drink, the whole Brian Brown from Cocktail. And no one will ever know the relationship me and you have with Brian Brown and goes back
Most
decades.
people don't even know who Brian Brown
No,
is.
they don't. He's the guy. He's the bartender in Cocktail. That's not Tom
He was in
Cruise.
FX with
He's
Brian
in
Dennehy.
Blame It on the Bellboy, which is a long, long story that we will not go into. So anyway, Mo snaps the lobster in half and pours the juice out of the lobster.
Yes.
That was perfect because it
That
just
was great.
fit the whole animation of the cocktail. And then, like you said, the claws as the garnishes.
Yep.
It was just
Icing
everything
on
worked.
the cake.
It
was the garnish on the lobster.
like we talk about extra beats. Yeah, jokes can have multiple beats. We prefer when jokes have multiple
Yeah,
beats.
it's just- they should work.
They should build on one another.
I thought it was great, and I even liked, Homer and Lenny are talking, and Lenny's like, "Oh, it's so good to be here," and I even got a parking space right outside. And Homer realizes that he can make
Right.
money by towing the car, and he does. Did you notice that Lenny's license plate was DUI guy?
Oh no.
I did.
So yeah, we were just talking about how the lobster joke was great because it built on it. Then Lenny just goes, "Oh, Homer, great joke! You're just towing my car for a joke. That's fun."
Right.
And then he just watches the car go off into the distance, and then they just linger
And that was
on
it.
Lenny.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't mind it.
felt bad for Lenny.
Yeah, but I was
I thought there
waiting.
would be a joke
I
there.
thought there was going to be a joke, and if you're gonna linger, either the lingering has to be the joke. Maybe
Yeah.
the sun sets and the sun comes back up, and
Right.
I don't think he's coming back.
Yeah, right.
Something like that, or you do have a button on the scene where Lenny does something, but Lenny just kind of like frowns and like puts his head down.
Yeah,
it was sad. It was a waste of time. It was stupid.
Real quick, there was just a couple of moments and lines that I liked and I thought were funny. Homer goes
All
up
right,
to
you
Marge.
rattle them off, and I'll just make disappointing.
Homer says to Marge, when you married a man who would years later become a tow truck driver without an expectation,
did
you
like
knew that. Yeah, I thought that was funny because obviously it was a
Right.
spur of the moment thing.
Yeah, and it's meta. It is a breaking the fourth wall.
This episode broke the fourth wall a lot. There were a lot of meta jokes, but I don't dislike those.
I guess this is early season 19. I guess this was the beginning of that. We say that pretty much since the show's gone HD is when they've really started making. Well, that's a different kind. That's almost more of a fan service meta. This was more of a TV writing meta, or Simpsons writing meta.
Yeah. And I also liked Homer says that he's towed Skinner's car, and Bart's like, how's he getting around? And then it cuts to outside. Skinner is on a desk chair, and he's pushing it down the street like it's like a gondola or something, and then he gets hit by a car. I don't know that he needed to get hit by the car. It was kind of just funny seeing him on the chair.
I mean, if we had a nickel for every time we said, I don't know if he needed to get hit by the car.
I don't know. Maybe a few less
But
pieces.
yeah, no, the car with the broom was. The office chair with the broom. That's just smart, and it fits. Skinner works in an office. This is something
Right.
Skinner would do. It wouldn't make sense if it was Burns or old Tex or rich old Texan, whatever
Right.
that character's name is.
I think it's Minzy Magel.
Or
Callback.
or your mother, Meffrey Mulhole.
Okay, so Flanders comes in.
Yeah, and he goes, if it isn't Tomer. Flanders was making a typical pun.
Right, a pun.
And Homer goes, "It's Homer, idiot."
Yeah, what'd you think about that?
I don't know. I didn't hate it, and I didn't love it.
I laughed at it.
I think I like it.
I think I liked
Yeah.
it, but I don't think I should have liked it.
I like the idea that Homer's not getting the pun. I bet you I would like it a lot more if the show didn't have so many puns to begin with.
Yeah, maybe that's what
even
it is.
Some work, most don't lately. But if puns is such a big part of your humor and your storytelling, then I guess the pun joke itself loses a little weight. So I don't know. Maybe
I agree with you. I loved this Flanders line where Flanders says, "Oh, with great power comes great responsibility," and then Homer says, "Who said that? I'll kill them with my power."
Yeah, great
that
line,
was great.
great turn up.
That was probably my second favorite moment. Of the
And not
episode.
just because we're big Spider-Man nerds, you especially.
Right. Well,
and just Homer's delivery. I'll kill them with my power.
Yeah, it was all great.
It was fantastic.
So then the town of Springfield kind of rises up against Homer because Homer has been towing all their cars.
Well, here's what I want to say about this. So, before that point, I was really not into this episode, and I was thinking again that this is just Mr. Plow, except Mr. Plow isn't. Homer becomes a plow driver. Homer gets a plow truck. That wasn't the plot. The plot that was the premise, but the story was Homer and Barney's friendship, and then their rivalry, and then they become their friendship.
Yeah.
The plow was a means to that end, and that's a great way to tell a story. And there's plenty of Simpsons episodes that do something similar. You take out Plow, you put something else.
It's the character dynamic that's
exactly.
really the focus.
That's the focus.
Yeah.
And I was really concerned that this was like the Plow episode without the Barney, where it's just Homer. They're just making it about, and I was like, "There's no story here. He's just towing." And it was refreshing when I suddenly realized what the story was going to be. That that he became mad with power.
That's not even the story.
That's the problem. So
it's just this moment. Really,
it's Act 2. It's up until they set him up, and then he gets kidnapped. I didn't like the plot, and it's like, oh, okay, I see where they're going. I like this, and then they didn't do anything with it, and I was disappointed. They quit jerking me around. Simpsons episodes.
Right. I agree. But Agnes Skinner is one of the kind of ringleaders of rising up against Homer.
Interesting choice.
And she has a very off-putting line where she says, "I might gum you, and you might like it."
Yeah,
I don't like that.
I don't think it's as insidious as you might be implying.
It's Insidious Chapter 2.
Chapter 3, I believe.
Chapter 3. Too many Insidiouses.
I don't think it's as dark. Like, she's made explicit like blowjob jokes that we've cringed at on this podcast before. I don't think that was more that what was really
even
interesting
just
to
gum you, just even if it's not an oral sex thing, just I'm gonna gum you. It's gross.
Yeah, it is gross. Whatever. What I thought was interesting was that it was because she was in a mob and all the mob got together around her and the pool table, and Sideshow Mel was off to the side. She goes, "Come on, Mel, get in here." Why? I don't know. Why was like they never set that up? Why is Mel? It was just like a weird random joke, and I get that it was random. I know I'm not missing anything, but it's just sometimes I like random, but I don't know. It just was like, what's going on? Why Mel? And then they pick on Mel again later, where they all
they're all hiding in a bush in a plot point we're going to talk about in a second, and then Sideshow Mel is like, I have theater tickets. And then Mo, you just hear a rip, and Mo's just like, not no more, you don't.
Yeah.
That was just, what the hell was that? Why did that need to be there?
Mo, why are you ripping up his theater tickets?
That seemed to me, especially
It's not movie tickets.
It was a static shot of just the bush, and you didn't actually see them. You just heard the voices. That makes me think this episode ran short.
And they just threw that in?
Yeah, thrown in.
Maybe. I would think that in better days and be like, oh, that's why that joke was inferior. But now I'm just like, I wouldn't be surprised if they planned that and it made it through 20 drafts.
Yeah, right. Like, we got to keep this great Mel line.
Yeah, so the townspeople decide, all right, Homer's become mad with power. They're sick of getting their cars towed. So they gang up to take Homer out of the picture.
Yep.
And how they do this is, again, I know this is a Simpsons episode. I know it's a post-classic Simpsons episode. I know I'm expecting way too much story, and I shouldn't be surprised. And I'm nitpicking. But there's really so much here that doesn't make sense. At least even in like bad episodes, usually you can kind of connect the dots. So somehow they know that Louie, this tow truck driver from a completely other town I've never heard of, somehow they know that if Homer goes into his territory, I guess Agnes says she knows that all tow truck drivers are territorial.
Oh, I don't even remember that. Okay.
So I guess that's it. So they put up a sign that's the Guidoville billboard we saw before, the Guidopolis.
Guidopolis, yeah.
They put the billboard up and they change it to Springfield. So Homer thinks he's still in Springfield. He thinks he's on his turf when he's actually.
The sign actually said, "You are still in Springfield."
Yeah, exactly. So
which is funny.
The idea is that Homer, we've already established that this is one of the more far off towns, past Shelbyville, past Capital City, past. So does Homer normally just drive down the highway clearly out of Springfield up until where he goes, all right, here's a different city, turn around and check my route.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just straining credibility a little bit too much.
You're right. There's a little too many things that didn't ping together.
Like he was clearly driving for a long time.
Right.
That one sign, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Maybe Louie shouldn't have been a character. Maybe they should have got him to tow the mayor's car or something. Maybe he's in it with the mayor. The mayor loves. It's like, oh, Homer, I love that you're the impound fees of I can buy my girlfriend a new fur coat. Like you're doing great. You're the best tow truck driver the city's ever had.
Yeah.
So rather than Matt Dillon. Or maybe Matt Dillon was the Springfield driver and he dies or something like in the truck. How he became a truck driver, a regular truck, a truck.
So you're combining like the mayor episode, Mayor to the Mob, with the Trash of the Titans episode.
How he becomes a regular truck driver. Anyway, so they're like, all right, Quimby's his biggest ally. Quimby's protecting him. So now let's trick him into towing Quimby's car.
Right.
Something more just in Springfield. Something tight. Even though that sounded like a lot for me to just say right now.
No, it
would have been tighter. In execution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. So I know I'm nitpicking. I know what everything we're saying. When you do a post-classic Simpsons podcast,
I was going to say this is episode 40 of this show, and
happy Fortyversary.
Happy Fortyversary. All right.
That's it.
That's it. It's not as special as the 10th episode.
We're just kind of in that groove now.
Yeah, we're kind of in that Groovic.
Groophic.
Groophic. You know it, bro. All right, I'm going to the bus stop. Oh, that was our normal speaking voice. I'm actually leaving. Yeah, goodbye, Jack.
It's just me now.
It's just me. It's you and Groovic. Let's get a groove.
That's actually my 10th post-classic. We're announcing I'm doing a new Simpsons podcast. It's me and Groovic. Guido Groophic.
Oh, yeah.
He's different from Twofic, and he's different from my impersonation of Groophic. There's like 9 Groofics now. All of my podcasts have a Groophic. DiCaprio's in all of them.
Well, DiCaprio is all of them.
He literally is the podcast.
He's everyone and everything.
I talk about penises. This is my life now. Did I mention we make like no money from Amazon through it? We just do this. We just do it. We just do it.
We are just doing this.
It's late. We're both past our bedtimes.
This is true.
We clearly don't like what we're watching.
Okay, so let's not even talk about the episode anymore. Let's just examine what the fuck are we doing with our lives with this podcast.
Is this what you saw yourself 10 years from 10 years ago? Where were you 10 years ago? Are you still in Cornell?
10 years ago. What year was it? It's 2015. No, 2005. Yeah, I was in my
pre-law. You were getting your major and your bachelor's.
We were both between junior and senior year.
Right, so you were getting a bachelor's in communications?
Hey, that's why I'm here. I'm communicating.
I was doing BFA in film and TV. We're talking about TV, so we've...
All right, so you know what? We're where we deserve to be. I majored in communications,
Just don't ask us what happened in between those 2 points.
Yeah, no. Just a dead zone.
Just all dead. Happy Fortyversary.
What do we do anymore? I don't know. It's all penises and Groovics.
Groovic.
It was only when you brought up that there was also Twofic and your impersonation that I was like, we may have beaten the Groovic horse into the ground.
There's 8 hemuses. Hemi.
Did someone call for hemus?
That's the same voice as Twister and Tweaker.
It's Tweaky the Twins.
They're all the same. Cut all this.
I'm late. Did someone mention Daleks? Real quick, going back to the Marge storyline for a moment. Marge sees that Maggie is becoming more independent, and I just love this moment where she picks up a sack of potatoes and cradles it, and she's like, yeah, this will be my new baby.
Yeah.
And then ties in at the end where Maggie has a face-off with the sack of potatoes. I liked that. I thought it was funny and quirky Marge.
I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. I hate to sound like a broken record on this one. I just realized, all right, it's our episode 40. We pretty much just had our midlife crisis.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, man, that was like our little midlife crisis moment. But then I realized we have 600 episodes to go, and this is not our midlife.
And they're all signed up for 4 more seasons, so good Lord. We have our work cut out for us.
So we're 9 podcasts, 600 episodes each.
You're going to do all of them 10 times. Just one last thing for Act 2. You probably didn't like this, but I did like this. Homer sees the fake car that the people of Springfield have set up. They put it in a handicap zone with a bunch of tickets, a bunch of other stuff.
Fire hydrant.
Right. Homer pulls up to it and he goes, oh, this is great. This is the tow truck driver's dream. If my life was a teleplay, this would be the end of Act 2. And then he starts towing it away, and then Louie comes in, and that's when they have their conflict, and he kind of kidnaps Homer, and then it says end of Act 2, and then Act 2 ends.
Yeah,
I'm guessing you didn't like it. It was very meta.
Seemed a little. It seemed a little out of context. I feel like if I don't mind that kind of joke, I just wish it would make more sense where it is. Like they do a very similar thing with Act 2, Death Drives a Stick.
Right.
And that was really more of a play on like 80s, 70s cop shows, which was what that scene and what that episode was about. Mm-hmm. So that made more. Like it was just a little bit more coherent. I didn't hate it.
Well, I mean, him saying like, "Oh, if this was my life was a teleplay, this would be the end of Act 2," and knowing it was end of Act 2, that's a little heavy-handed. Yeah. But what saved it was at the end when it actually was the end of Act 2 when it said end of Act 2.
It's not as good as Arrested Development also did the same joke. Where,
yes.
Now that's an act break.
Yeah, that was. Arrested Development was a pretty great show. Okay, so then it's Act 3, and here's the note that I have for the beginning of Act 3. I wrote that Homer is very Homer. He's a dope, but also this is the moment when Louie has kidnapped him, and he's kind of hanging on the back of Louie's truck. Homer obviously doesn't want to go with him, but he's hanging on the hook and having fun and being like, wee!
Yeah, he said wee.
So I like that. I like when Homer is basically a big kid and not just a big pile of shit.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a good point.
So then, yeah, all of a sudden, Matt Dillon takes Homer into his house, and he has a den of... I actually wrote a prisoner of basements, but it's a basement of prisoners, which is insane and insane.
Yeah, no, it's funny. We talk about maybe doing the kidney episode sometime in the future, even though that's technically in the post classic era.
Season 10. Yeah, we're gonna do that one soon.
And that had a very similar thing where he's just like trapped on a boat with lost souls.
Right.
That had a little bit more tie into like that kind of dramatic trope, where this was just a bunch of guys in
Just
a basement.
out of nowhere,
It
Matt
made no
Dillon
sense.
keeps men in his basement.
We never saw Louie again, right? From the beginning, the first scene. This was the first time we were seeing him since then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just out of nowhere. There was no it was just weird. I was like, I don't know. Why does he have a gun? Again, this would have made more sense if he was like tied in with the mob, with like Fat Tony.
In Guidopolis, you have to have a gun. So.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just
Issued.
stupid. I'm sorry, I don't have that much like actual depth to say about it. It's just stupid.
I liked.
What about the under the boardwalk thing? He said they all gave him really sarcastic answers. Like, are you guys a bunch of hostages? And they're like, no, we're a cappella group and we're practicing.
Yeah, we're gonna sing under the boardwalk.
Oh no, we're growing
out our hair so we can beard it
and
or
then Homer
braid it.
goes, wait a second, and you thought he was gonna say you guys are being sarcastic. He goes, is it the second one? It's the second one. I'm not stupid.
Right, and then they actually sing under the boardwalk.
But they're not an a cappella group. I mean,
They are just
they
prisoners. Yeah. I don't know.
And then it goes on. They sing like a whole stanza.
They sang a lot of it. Yeah, it was too much. I don't know if this episode was but that moment was
Yeah, there's lots of that moments in this episode.
There's a few. I did like when Homer calls Lisa at home and he has Louie has the gun to him and Homer just says, "All is well, goodbye forever."
Yeah, I love that. I love, he's clearly like emotionless and cold and just saying what he had to say. The goodbye forever was great. It was I like that.
I love that a lot. I thought that was really good. And then without Homer. I think it was Lenny maybe who said, it's great not having any laws. We can just police ourselves and everything will be great.
The line is, without the crushing rule of law, society will do a better job of regulating itself.
That's right.
It's a brilliant line. I love it because it's just like, not to get too political, but when people like I'm not so much of a small government people as like the libertarian side of the spectrum, and that's why it's just it's like just the irony in that statement.
Yeah,
just, without the crushing rule of law. So, it's like when you argue for deregulation of the banks and stuff. It's like we'll sort itself out. It's like no, it won't. You'll have trains going through the city, which this show did. 3 years before Inception, 4 years before Inception, the visual of a train just steamrolling through the middle of the city.
Well, I loved that scene. It was.
It's because everybody is breaking. Everybody.
Yeah, everyone's breaking the laws.
Down,
Lenny parks in the handicap spot, so Agnes Skinner can't park in the handicap spot. So she parks in 3 spots, and then Rainier Wolfcastle drives over her car with his Humvee, and then it's just a pirate ship in the middle of the street, lasso or harpoons a blimp that's parked across the street, and then a train just comes in and hits both of them. Yeah, it was so ridiculous. It was over the top. It was really funny.
Yeah, it's Springfield chaos. It's Springfield breaking out into chaos, and they did a very good job
in a very Springfield way.
Exactly. It felt at home. It felt what a Simpsons episode should feel like. It was perfect.
Yeah.
And again, the train going through the city, that's such a surreal image. So much that like the ads for Inception were like pushing that like that. It's like, isn't it weird to see a train smash through the city? And it was very similar to the shot. Like it smashes into I think the boat in this case.
It was a pirate ship.
Which is even better than it smashing into whatever it smashed into Inception. It's just a giant bomb.
A car. The personification of a wall.
No, that whole sequence was done very well.
Yeah, I agree. A couple of just quick things to just run through real quick. Homer's telling stories to all of the other captives, and he's finishing the tale of Transformers.
The stories are blockbuster movies.
Right, and then he says, now I'd like to tell you a hilarious story about an ogre named Shrek the Third. Yeah, was it Shrek 3? Shrek 3. And I like how
the idea that the name of the character is
the name of the movie,
which is great. Like with Mel Gibson, the Mel Gibson episode. Did Payback give up?
Yeah, right. So some continuity there of Homer thinking.
And we all do it. The name of the shark's not Jaws, but we call him Jaws.
What? It was Bruce actually. Shrek was from medieval times, but sometimes he would say things from today times.
Yeah, there was a fun little.
That's the Shrek series in a nutshell.
Exactly, and it's like slightly condescending, but also apt. It was perfect.
Yep, I like that a lot. And then it kind of gets into the end of the plot. So Homer is captive in Louie's basement. That sounds weird. Out of context. And I like that it's Maggie who sees that Marge is upset, and she's the one who's like, I'm going to go find him. It made me think of they did it already with the one where Maggie goes off to find Marge.
Yeah.
And leaves the house. But I don't know. It's sweet. The Maggie Homer dynamic is always a favorite of mine.
All right, I really didn't like like it at all.
Really,
I agree. I like the character dynamic. I like that Maggie was looking out for Marge. I really have a problem with when Maggie gets too smart on the show, and they do it a lot.
Really?
I feel like they've done it more in the post-classic. Like, yes, in the classic era, in a very early season 4, when she goes looking for Marge. Season 3, she goes looking for Marge. But it's still a little bit, like, even though it's just, it's a cartoon, and it's not real. The baby's not going to be crawling out anywhere. But, she's mistaking, like, the ice cream logo with the blue hair for like Marge's hair. That stuff I don't mind. I think one of the first time, and I like the idea that she's a genius. I do like that, that she's even smarter than Lisa, and then in 10 years she'll be, even Lisa's too smart for her own good. She's smarter than an 8-year-old should be. I don't mind that. And I do like these hints that Maggie's a genius. Sometimes she'll knock the blocks over and it'll spell E equals MC
squared.
But I remember the first time I was really like, all right, this is too much. Was the where Homer bowls a perfect game episode, which is like season 9 or season 10, and Marge goes in, Maggie rolls her eyes and goes in and saves Homer and pulls him out of the water. He's drowning, which is pretty much the same situation here, where Maggie's saving Homer because Homer's a dumb oaf and she has to bail him out.
So they've done it before.
So that was the first time I was like, Maggie's too smart. This episode, I thought it was really over the top. Like the whole cowboy thing where she's riding the dog, and I don't know.
I liked it. I don't know. I
know she's a cartoon. I know she's not a real baby. I just thought it was a little too much. Also,
I gotta say, I like Maggie as being possibly the smartest Simpson.
It was just too cartoony.
Yeah, I normally agree. I don't like when the show gets too cartoony, but this worked for me. I thought it was entertaining. I liked the animation of her riding the dog and going through the town at night.
Separately, out of context, the animation was not bad. It was nice. It had a Western theme. There was Western music.
There was Western music.
She's riding the dog like a horse. She's going into the town. She has a shootout with the bag of potatoes and but why? Why is it a Western? What does that have to do with anything?
Well,
they go to Guidoville.
I agree with you on that one.
They were doing this whole weird Outsiders universe. Shouldn't they either have done something like that?
Batman and the Outsiders.
So maybe Maggie's having a street race in the aqueduct or whatever they have, like a grease type.
You're right.
Something Guido-esque, or you don't do the Guido thing at all, and Guidopolis is Westernopolis, and it's a Western, and you do something like that. But what does a Western have to do with anything? The only thing I can think of is that the episode is called Midnight Towboy, which is a weird bad pun of Midnight Cowboy, which is not a Western, but it's about a cowboy.
Wow.
It's all just DiCaprioing in on itself. Bwom.
It's just a web of Spider-Man DiCaprioing in on itself.
I don't know. I really...
Yeah, you're right. That's a great point.
And what's funny is, as shitty as all of that is, I would say this episode is not nearly as bad as Bonfire of the Manatees or all those ones, because the one thing that they did get right is the integrity, and that goes a long way. I appreciate the humor category almost as much, but bad integrity is worse than bad humor. And you're right. I did like the sweetness. I did like that Maggie was looking out for Marge and Homer and bailing them out. So all his complaints was with that grain of salt. It's I agree that everything Maggie was doing I liked. It's just I didn't like the way it was being done.
Yeah, okay. I understand.
Yeah. And if we're gonna do more nitpicking of the plot, she rescues him. She attaches a toe, which she lifted a toe. She attaches the hook to the thing, and she pulls the wall out, and they all escape. Mm-hmm. So that's it. Louie's just gonna. The guy obviously takes things a little too seriously with his dungeon of prisoners. Yeah. He's just gonna be okay with them ruining his house, and he's not gonna come back for Homer. And
that's gonna be season 27, The Revenge of Louie. We're gonna write that episode. We'll get Matt Dillon back.
Or at least Kevin Dillon.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention was when Maggie gets into Guidopolis, she has Sansalopper sniffing for Homer, and he finds a Homer hair, like the M-shaped hair on the side of his head, and she holds it up to the moon, which has Homer's face on it, and it's just, I thought that was a great bit of animation.
It's a nice little meta touch.
I liked it, and you didn't like it as much, and I think that's it for this episode.
Well,
you got more?
The resolution was great. So Homer is rescued by Maggie, and he goes, "Good job, Maggie. As payment, here's your nose back."
Yes,
and that was a perfect little sweet moment.
I did like that.
Then there's an extra beat where he goes, "Oh, this is Lisa's nose." Didn't derail the whole thing. It wasn't bad.
It was whatever.
Do with her without it. It wasn't. It was what it was.
I'm sorry about the kick. I've never done anything like that before.
Yeah, well, I'm glad your first time was such a success.
Okay, so that is it for Midnight Towboy. So now it is time. We're going to rank this episode. We do that on our 4-factor scale: humor, integrity, production, originality. We're going to measure all of them. Production and originality are valued less. So 2 minutes on the clock. Let's do it. The humor of this episode. What do you got? Midnight Towboy.
All right, there are a few jokes I liked. Obviously, I was kind of down on this episode in general.
Yeah.
1.5.
Wow. I'm going to go 3. I thought this episode was pretty funny.
You watch this episode again, you'll see.
Mr. T is the Lion King. That's all I need to say.
That's true. That was a great joke.
Okay, the integrity of the episode. What do we got?
You know what? I'm gonna go back. I'll give it a 2 because between that and the lobster thing.
Yeah. There was some good stuff here. I'm going a little bit above average for this show.
Integrity 3.5.
Yeah, I can't. Well, why so high? I'm actually surprised you went that high. I guess everyone is in character.
It's a great Marge character B plot. As much as I hate Genius Maggie for too much Maggie, it fit Maggie. I love the beat with Homer in the nose. The tow truck plot is awful, but it wasn't out of character for Homer.
Yeah.
Bart and him riding the tow truck. There was really no out of character stuff I can think of.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. I'm going to also go 3.5. The production of this episode, I'm probably going to go pretty high on this. There was a lot of things that were well animated that I liked, like Bart riding the tow truck, Maggie's whole cowboy thing, which I liked more than you did, but I'm thinking 3.5 or 4 maybe even. Maybe I'll go 3.5. What do you got?
This is where I think I'll let my indifference show the most. I'm going to give it 2.5.
Okay. And then finally we have the originality of the episode. So this is probably going to be pretty low because, as we said a number of times, this was basically Mr. Plow but worse.
Yeah.
Or the truck driving episode but worse, and the truck driving episode's not that great to begin with.
The B plot was solid.
The B plot was solid.
We didn't go too much into this. I wasn't crazy about the resolution. It's just like I like that Maggie realizes she still needs her mother, but it just kind of got to that point. Like she just rescued her father. That's pretty independent.
Yeah.
But, so I don't know. It's kind of just one of those. It didn't really end. What do you think?
I'm thinking probably the 1.5 range.
Yeah, I'm torn between 1.5 and 2. I guess the structure. I guess this is where we take points off for bad story, and there were big plot holes. And like I said, the best part of the story is when the city breaks down because Homer's got mad with power. Homer versus the city, and then they don't do anything. It ends up becoming this weird hostage situation with Homer. That's terrible. 1.5.
All right. Okay, so we've crunched the numbers, and Midnight Towboy has ranked fairly high in our ranking.
Higher than I expected.
Against your will.
Yeah.
It is ranked fairly high. It is a slightly worse episode than Bart Stops to Smell the Roosevelts, and a slightly better episode than Bart Mangled Banner. That puts it in our top 10 best episodes right now.
Yeah, I would not put it there. I would think I would put it more in the middle range. But whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going off of your rating alone, it would be worse than Kill Gill, which is
but penises
like
would be at the top of the list.
Penises?
I've seen my share.
number 1. Okay, so that's it for this episode of Worst Episode Ever. Thanks for listening, and thanks for sharing the show and supporting us. Check out our website, weepodcast.com. You can submit episodes, our Facebook, our Twitter, all that fun stuff is there. And if you're listening to this the day it comes out, you missed Simpsons Trivia in Brooklyn, but you may not have missed it elsewhere. Google Woohoo Classic Simpsons Trivia. I host that first Thursday of every month in Brooklyn. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can go to the WePodcast.com to find our Twitter and our individual Twitters. I'm at Then Dan Says.
I'm at Jackie No Breaks. Also, I have a Facebook Use It in a Sentence Facebook page. Google it, Facebook it, I don't know.
And as you guys may know, we're doing our Summer of Fans, where we're listening to fans submitted to cut all this phrases.
We'll probably stop pushing it because the summer's,
the summer is winding down.
And but we still, we're willing to do this past the summer. So as long as you guys keep submitting them, we'll keep using them. Maybe when if we run out, just won't use them that episode.
Maybe this will be a regular feature of the show.
Yeah,
so
if you guys
seem to like it, we like it.
But so just because we stop pushing it, which we probably will at some point, it's still there. Just keep submitting.
Yeah, maybe I'll change the Summer of Fans page to the Cut All This page.
To the DiCaprio of fans.
To the DiCaprio of fans. So you can do that on the website, wepodcast.com. We're going to hear from one listener in a moment, but first let's tell you what we're going to do next week. Next week we are going to do Season 13, doing it again. Season 13, we're watching an episode called Brawl in the Family.
Yeah, like All in the Family. But it actually rhymes, unlike Towboy.
Unlike Midnight Towboy. Okay, so with that, we are going to cut over to our very special listener, our cool cat for the week.
Very special, because the name is just Cat Stamps, and I didn't see another name in
that's
the
true.
email.
All right.
So assuming you're just going by Cat Stamps, thank you very much, and take it away.
What is this? Cut this out. Let's go back to the murder seal.